evening, YouTube. You guys are now watching another segment of the Cali Effect. Today, we are going to be talking about the same thing we talk about every time around this format, or the beginning of a format. That's right, the top 5 underrated decks you can be playing this format. Now, we already know Cosmo, Monarchs, and PK Fire are 3 decks that are completely excluded from this conversation. Why? Because these decks have been so good into last format and didn't necessarily get hit that they're almost obvious contenders. We're talking about the decks that, don't necessarily fit into, the best player strategy, but still are really good strategies to play. Another thing I wanted to include, since Shining Victories is coming out in the next 2 weeks, that we're going to actually include a couple of strategies for that if they fit this criteria, which 2 of them do. So without further ado, I'm excited to present to you the top 5 underrated strategies this format. Number 5 on this list is everybody's favorite, or, sometime around was somebody's favorite. Come on, don't lie. You know that this is your favorite deck. And if you like Dark Magician and Yugi, you know that this is your favorite deck. That's right, I'm talking about the Blue Eyes White Dragon strategy. And the reason why this strategy is so good, because anytime you can start spamming 3,000 attack monsters to your side of the field, I don't think that would be a pretty bad strategy. Not only is the Blue Eyes strategy allowing you to spam 3,000 attack monsters, Blue Eyes White Dragon to your side of the field, it also has some really viable Synchro 9 and Rank 8 plays, whether it's Divine Dragon Knight Felgrand or the new Blue Eyes Synchro that allows you to stop your opponent's graveyard effects, prevent them from pendulum summoning more than enough monsters that they need, and then also special summoning Azure Eyes from your extra deck. This card is good. Now, the best thing about the Blue Eye strategy is that they did not forget about the fusion summoning, which actually, it's kind of what Konami's been pointing to, allowing us to fusion summon, Exceed summon, and Synchro summon, something that Pepe wasn't able to do anymore because of the ban list. I'm sorry, guys, it's just that the ban list talk got me a little riled up. But anyways, Blue Eyes White Dragon is a very good deck, and it has some amazing search report inside of the Melody of the Dragon Awakening, whatever that card. Look, I ordered a bunch of them, and I sold them all, so don't ask me for any of them. I just know it's a great card. And it also has some great draw engine cards such as Trade-In, as well as, all of the priestesses that it could use and abuse to its advantage. Blue Eyes is definitely a deck to be reckoned with, and anytime you can summon all of the great Rank 8 monsters, as well as Synchro summon for some really awesome level 9 monsters, and then on top of that, Fusion summon for some Blue Eye support that does damage, this deck could be a genuine contender, if not a tier 1 deck. Number 4 on this list actually caught me by surprise, and I'm the one that made the list. This is Dark Pepe, and my reasoning behind Dark Pepe being on this list and being so high up, because it should have been 5 with Blue Eyes 4, is because this deck was actually relevant last format. So for it to be relevant this format isn't that too much of a push. My logic behind Dark Pepe being a great deck is, as long as Pendulum Sorcerer remains a card, at 3, I mean, you can even check the OCG, it's at 1. So as long as Pendulum Sorcerer remains a card, this deck can still be somewhat viable in any way, shape, and form. And that's what this list is going to prove. Dark Pepe, or Pepe, because it doesn't really matter what else you play, did lose some significant power. Wavering Eyes being banned, Monkey Board being put to 1, Draco Slayer being put to 1, True Awakening being put to 1. Just so much cards have been hit because of this deck, and it's still viable. Why? Because it still has great options like Pendulum Rising. The Dark variant abuses Armageddon Knight and Blackwing Zephyros, so you can use Monkey Board more than once, or even perform Pal Skullbat Joker more than once. Guiding Ariadne is still a card allowing you to search your Solemn Strikes and Solemn Warnings. This deck can still put up 2 Exceed monsters, or 2 rank 4 Exceed monsters, and still Ignister on board 1, as well as counter traps face down. This deck can still be ridiculous, and I know you guys are probably like, oh, thank you, Pepe's over. I'm sorry to tell you guys that this deck could very much be a contender as much as the other decks on this list. Now, the reason why it is at number 4 is because it did lose a lot of consistency, and it did lose some power, but, I mean, come on. It's Pepe. We should probably have to deal with this until next year. Number 3 on this list is like, God, how many top 5 underrated decks have I made? And how many times has this deck still been on the list? That's right, Mermail. I mean, you guys should have expected it as soon as I said that. Mermail is still to this day a fast, consistent, efficient, FTK killing shark deck that will bite the living daylights out of any tier 1 deck if you leave an open board or if they draw the nuts. This deck did get hit by the list, not directly, indirectly, with Norden being to 1. It kind of makes you like play 3 instant fusion, but you know, one of your instant fusions is dead, unless you make a die booster emerald, which makes you play more monsters that are 4, which puts you in a whole bunch of stuff. But this deck is still very, very, very valuable. Megalo being the monster that it is, Dragoons being the monster that it is. Like, come on, why isn't this deck, like, I don't know, tier 1 by now? I don't know, maybe because Dragoons at 2 and, you know, Prince does have some issues with that. But ultimately, like I said, this deck hits hard, hits fast, OTKs, and is very adaptable. It's been almost 3 years, if I'm correct, and this deck is still alive. You can't name another deck ever in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! That has lived this long. Number 2 on this list, look, I ain't gonna lie. I probably played this deck maybe once in my life, and I already can tell that it's a contender. And that's right, we're talking about Raid Raptors, another concept or strategy that is getting support inside of Shiny Victories. Now, Raid Raptors are a little bit ridiculous, and at first I thought they were trash, mainly because for the past however long they've existed, they have been pretty, you know, subpar. But let's look at this. Raid Raptors have some, you know, good spell support that allows them, you know, to search cards. They have some good trap support that allows them to prevent damage and prevent their monsters from being destroyed. I mean, that's not like amazing, but then at the same time, when you look at it and you play it, it's amazing. They have some really good rank 4 support. They have some really good search rank 4 support. And most importantly, they make rank ups. Now, we're gonna disregard all of that, and the Cali effect is gonna throw caution to the wind and say that there's one reason why this deck just might be tier 1. It's because Konami likes the OCG, and the OCG for some reason loves Blackwings. Now granted, Blackwings are getting support, but Raid Raptors actually have a Cleave 4 Tower-like card. So I'm gonna go with the, you know, Raid Raptors because of this 3500 beater that's unaffected by cards and forces your opponents in very small situations. Look, I was playing this guy on Dev Pro, and I know this is a horrible example. You never say stuff like that. And I saw him strike the card, and it didn't leave the field. So that says something about the card's greatness. The deck is really, really consistent at making a lot of rank 4s, and when in need, it does activate rank up spells, which have been known to be pretty bad, and gets away with it by making really good monsters. So is this deck underrated? Yes. Has the Cali effect played it? Hell no. Would he play it? Well, we're going to leave that up to discussion, all right? Well, we're going to get to the next one. Number 1 is the reigning champion. It had a buddy, but what happened to that buddy, we don't really know. I mean, I'm not going to lie. The buddy isn't, you know, that bad, but we're going to keep on, you know, get past that. Number 1 is a deck that has been the cuddliest deck of all time. But in the creeps of darkness, when you're cornered into a circle, they become vicious monsters that tear away your opponent's life points in one turn. Before that, I actually want to talk about some honorable mentions. You know, there's Heroes, you know, that's a pretty good deck. There's Super Quantums, I like them because you hit the Super Quant, or that's not the Quant, I don't dance, I'm not that type of and then, you know, there's a couple other great decks. Ice cream! The number 1 deck is Fluffals. Be back in 5. Number 5 on this list, like I said before, is Fluffals, and I have a brain freeze. Let me see if I can play this out. Fluffals are a fast, OTK consistent machine, and their best matchup just so happens to be Cosmo. Why? Because they make Fright for Dog, and then they make Fright for Sheep, and guess what? That sheep runs into the Cosmo Dark Destroyer, comes back as 3200, and then attacks over the Cosmo Dark Destroyer with no effect, which typically leads to some problems for the Cosmo player, unless they have Call and Hunt. But then, you know, there's like Fight for Tiger, Twin Twisters, and other outs to that. So yes, this deck can be a very good contender. And what's great about this deck is that it's very hard to side against, mainly because nobody really comes prepared for a deck like Fluffals. Now, I really wanted to put Despots here, but their new support is lacking, and I mean, it's definitely an honorable mention, but come on, look at them. They're just so cute. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys would like to voice your top 5 down below, I'd be more than happy to see them, but don't expect me to read and comment on them all. Thank you guys so much for watching again. Please like, comment, subscribe, but most of all, enjoy.